The alien hospital on the outer rim was always busy. Strange bodies came every day, broken, bleeding, or poisoned from battles and accidents. Leora, the young alien nurse, had seen everything, or at least she thought she had. She trusted her charts, her scanners, and her books. They told her how every known species lived, healed and died, but that night was different. The emergency doors burst open with a loud hiss. Guards in black armor rushed in, carrying a body on a metal stretcher. Leora's eyes widened when she saw what lay there. It was not the usual alien soldier, not a reptilian, insectoid, or scaled fighter. It was a human. She froze, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. Humans were rare here, almost like myths. She had read about them in fragments, studied their biology in dusty medical charts, but she had never seen one in person, and now one lay in front of her, broken, bloody, and somehow still breathing. The guards barked orders. Save him if you can. But don't waste too many supplies. Their voices were cold, as if this patient was not worth the effort. Leora ignored them and focused on the human. She scanned him quickly, expecting clear readings. But the screen blinked red with errors. Her chart lines jumped up and down wildly, refusing to match any pattern she knew. "This can't be right," she whispered. According to her medical charts, the human should already be dead. His heart was weak, his blood pressure collapsing, his organs torn. No body could endure this much trauma, not even the strongest alien warrior. Yet his chest rose and fell slowly, stubbornly, as if defying the galaxy itself. The other nurses gathered around, whispering, "Why is he still alive? Impossible, the charts are wrong. Maybe humans are dangerous." Fear spread in the room. But Leora pushed it aside, her instincts louder than her doubts. She leaned closer to the human's face. His skin was pale, smeared with dried blood and dirt. His hair was messy, his lips cracked. But his eyes fluttered open for just a second. Two tired human eyes met hers, filled with pain yet holding a strange fire. Then they closed again, as if he had used his last strength just to look at her. Leora's heart raced. Something inside her whispered that this was no ordinary patient. This human was different. She prepared tools, ignoring the beeping alarms from her scanner. Every line on her chart screamed death, but her gut told her there was still life. She worked quickly, stitching wounds, pressing Medjol across his torn skin. But the strange thing was, his body reacted differently. Where normal alien tissue would take hours to bind, his flesh closed faster. Not perfect, but strong enough to stop more bleeding. The more she treated him, the more impossible it became. Her chart said one thing, but her eyes told another. The head doctor entered, frowning. "Why are you wasting time? His kind does not matter." But Leora stood her ground. "If he still breathes, he matters," she said firmly. The doctor scoffed and left, muttering about wasted medicine. Yet Leora kept working, hands steady though her heart trembled. Hours passed and she refused to leave his side. Her eyes kept going back to the blinking red charts. Every line, every reading screamed failure. Still, the human's chest lifted, slower but steady. The impossible patient would not give up. By dawn, when the hospital halls quieted, Leora sat near him, exhausted. The human still lay on the bed, bandaged and pale, but alive. She touched the scanner again, still broken data, still screaming dead, and yet she could hear it clearly now. A heartbeat, faint but stubborn, echoing in the silence, her eyes filled with shock, fear, and something more. No chart had prepared her for this, no book could explain it. She whispered to herself, almost afraid, "What are you, human?" And as the first rays of light touched the sterile walls of the ward, the alien nurse realized something that would change everything. Humans did not follow the rules of her charts. They made their own. The alien hospital never truly slept. Machines hummed, footsteps echoed in metal halls, and alarms often cried in the night. But inside the quiet recovery room, all was still except for the human. Leora checked the charts again, shaking her head in disbelief. Every line, every number said he should be gone. Yet there he was, breathing. She leaned close, watching the rise and fall of his chest. It was shallow but steady, each breath dragging like a war. She had seen warriors fall with half these injuries, their strong alien bodies giving up within minutes. But this human, his body clung to life with a force she had never witnessed. It was as if his blood itself refused surrender. She prepared the nanobot injection, the standard treatment that repaired tissue cell by cell. The silver liquid shimmered in the tube as she pressed it into his vein. For a moment, the machines beeped in rhythm. Normal and calm, then the impossible happened. The nanobots screamed through the scanner, error symbols flashing across the screen. Instead of settling into his blood, they burned out, fried, and died within seconds. Leora gasped, her hand covering her mouth. The other nurse at her side stepped back in fear. "No body rejects nanobots like that," she whispered. Leora quickly scanned again. Same results. It was not rejection like an allergy. It was destruction. The humans' blood fought the bots as if they were invaders, tearing them apart before they could heal. "How can his cells do this?" Leora whispered. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on the strange patient. The human's wounds should have reopened without treatment, but instead, something stranger happened before her very eyes. The skin around the bandage cut shifted, slow, raw, but visible. The tissue was knitting itself back together. Not clean like nanobot work, but rough, stubborn, natural healing at an impossible speed. The other nurse backed away, whispering, "This is wrong." "Unnatural." Fear grew in her eyes, but Leora's fear was mixed with awe. It was not wrong. It was beyond known science. The human's body was fighting on its own, like a soldier in a battle unseen. Every cell seemed to carry the same will: survive, no matter what. Later that night, Leora stayed alone in the room. She watched closely, noting every change. His pulse grew stronger by fractions, his breathing steadier. She tried another treatment, a mild healing serum that normally strengthened alien blood. The scanner blinked warnings again, but the human did not weaken. Instead, his body absorbed it in strange ways, using only fragments of it, rejecting the rest. He was not healed by alien medicine. He was healed by himself. Hours passed and Leora began to see patterns. His body was not simply resisting alien treatments, it was choosing. As if his blood knew what it wanted and what it would destroy. The realization sent chills down her spine. Her charts, her books, her machines, all useless in the face of this mystery. When dawn came, she stood by his bed, exhausted but unable to leave. Her eyes traced the human's face, pale but no longer deathly. He looked fragile, yet every reading said he was growing stronger. It was as if his body laughed at her charts, breaking every rule she believed in. Whispers spread through the ward. Other staff avoided the room, calling him cursed. Some said he carried death inside him. Others claimed humans were weapons wrapped in flesh. Guards passed by and sneered, "Why is he still here?" He should have died already, but Leora stood firm. Protecting her patient, she had never defied authority before. But this human stirred something deep inside her. That evening, when the hospital lights dimmed, she returned again. She thought he was asleep, but his lips moved. She leaned close. Holding her breath, the human whispered, voice broken and faint, "Help, please." Leora's heart clenched, her eyes burning. The words were weak, but the meaning was clear. He was fighting, but not alone anymore. She held his hand gently, surprised at the warmth that pulsed back. This was not just survival, it was willpower. Her charts did not prepare her for that. No alien medicine could explain it. This was something else, something she could not write in numbers or graphs. For the first time she felt fear, but not of the human, fear of what his survival meant. If one human could endure what killed 100 warriors, what would happen if the galaxy learned? Would they fear his kind, or would they try to destroy them before they understood? Leora whispered into the silence, "I'll help you, human, no matter what they say." The faintest stir passed through his face, as if he heard her through the fog of pain. And in that quiet room, she realized something terrifying and beautiful. This was not healing. Not in the way she had studied. This was war. Fought inside his body, and he was winning. The hospital was a place of order. Charts, machines, and rules shaped every corner. But ever since the human was brought in, that order had begun to crumble. He was a quiet storm in the recovery ward. He did not speak much, only breathed and healed in ways no one understood. And with every hour, fear began to spread like a shadow. Nurses whispered in hallways, their voices sharp and worried. "His body burns the nanobots," one said, eyes wide with terror. "He heals faster than charts allow," said another. Some even crossed their arms and swore never to enter his room again. The fear was not just about the unknown. It was about what the unknown meant. Rumors grew outside the hospital too. Guards who carried him in spoke loudly in the city taverns. They described how a human soldier had survived wounds that should kill 10 men. Some called him cursed. Others said he was a weapon disguised as flesh. By the third day, half the staff looked at Leora not with respect, but suspicion. She carried food trays, medicine, and water into the human's room. Every step felt heavy under the weight of their stares. Some hissed behind her back. "She's protecting a monster," others muttered. "If he lives, maybe he brings doom upon us." Leora forced herself not to listen, but deep down the whispers haunted her. That night, she stood by his bedside once more. His face was pale, his body wrapped in layers of bandages, yet his chest rose and fell in stubborn rhythm. Her scanner flashed warnings, still showing impossible numbers. But when she touched his wrist, she felt a stronger pulse than before. It was undeniable. The human was getting better. The whispers clawed at her mind. What if the others were right? What if saving him brought danger not only to her, but to everyone? She shook her head, pushing the doubts away. Because when she looked at him, she did not see a monster. She saw someone fighting harder than anyone she had ever treated. Hours passed, and she sat quietly near him. Suddenly his eyes opened, weak but clear. They locked onto hers. And for a moment the room froze. His lips moved slowly, voice raspy as if torn from broken lungs. "Why, help me," he whispered. The words cut into her heart. No alien patient had ever asked her that. Most expected treatment, some demanded it. But this human sounded almost surprised that someone cared. Leora swallowed, her throat tight. "Because you're alive," she whispered back. His lips trembled, but no sound came. He closed his eyes again, sinking back into fragile sleep. Her chest ached with emotions she could not name. She was no longer just a nurse with charts. She was part of his survival. By morning, the fear in the hospital had worsened. The head doctor stormed into the ward, robes swishing with authority. "This ends now," he snapped. "The human will be removed." "Before he infects this place with his curse," Leora stood frozen, her hands trembling. "Infects? He's healing," she said softly. The doctor's eyes burned with anger. "Healing in ways that break our science. Our order, our safety." He turned to the guards. "Prepare to move him out." The guards nodded, their boots echoing against the floor. Leora's heart pounded, fear gripping her chest. If they took him away now, he would not survive the journey. She stepped forward, blocking their path. Her voice shook but did not break. "You can't move him, not yet." "He's too weak," the doctor sneered. "Weak? Or dangerous?" The room grew heavy with silence. After a long pause, the doctor waved his hand. "Fine, one more night, but if he still lives by tomorrow, he will not live here." With that, he stormed out, the guards following behind. The whispers in the hallway grew louder. Some staff called her reckless, others called her foolish, but none dared to enter the human's room again. That night, Leora returned once more, her steps heavier than ever. She found him stirring, his face twisted with pain, his voice cracked, barely audible. "They fear me." She froze, realizing he had heard more than she thought. "They don't understand," she whispered, sitting beside him. "They think you are dangerous, but I know you're just surviving." His lips curved faintly, almost like a broken smile. "Surviving." "Yes," he breathed before drifting back into uneasy rest. Her hands clenched tight. The whispers outside could not silence the truth she saw in front of her. He was not cursed, not a monster. He was proof of something greater, and she was the only one willing to stand beside him. As the night deepened, Leora stared at the human. Her mind raced with fear and questions. Would she be punished for defying orders? Would she lose her place in the hospital? Maybe worse. Would they try to kill him just to silence their fear? Her chest tightened as she whispered into the darkness. "If they want to take you away, they'll have to go through me." And though her voice shook, she meant every word. The alien hospital had grown colder around Leora. Every step she took, she felt eyes watching, whispering, doubting her. The human was no longer just a patient, he was a rumor, a fear, a secret too heavy to hide, and yet, inside his quiet room, things were different. It was no longer just about duty. It was something deeper, though Leora could not admit it even to herself that night. She slipped inside the ward when the halls were nearly empty. The lamps glowed faint blue against metal walls. Machines hummed low. The human lay on the bed, wrapped in bandages, his breathing steady but still weak. His eyes opened as she entered, surprising her. For days he had seemed lost between pain and unconsciousness, but now, though tired, he looked at her with awareness. "You." Again, His voice cracked, dry and rough. Leora stepped closer, carrying a small bowl of water and herbs. She knelt beside him, pressing the damp cloth against his lips. "Drink slowly," she whispered, guiding him carefully. He obeyed, his eyes never leaving hers. When he pulled away, he let out a shaky laugh that startled her. "You're not afraid of me," he said softly. Her heart trembled. The truth was she had been afraid at first. Afraid of his strange healing, his impossible body, his presence that defied her charts. But now as she looked at him, fear had melted into something else. Curiosity, trust, maybe even something warmer. "I don't fear you," she whispered. "I fear what they'll do to you." The human's eyes softened for the first time since he arrived. She saw not just pain but gratitude. He moved his lips again, his voice faint but clear. "Help? Why?" The question struck her deeper than she expected. Why indeed? She was risking her career, maybe even her life. She should have followed orders, stepped back, let him die like they wanted. But when she looked at him, she saw someone who refused to break, and she could not turn away. "Because you're alive," she said simply. "Because you deserve to live." The room was silent after her words. Then the human closed his eyes, whispering so low she almost missed it. "Thank you." That single word stayed with her like fire, burning in her chest long after he fell asleep. From that night on, Leora began breaking rules. She brought extra food when the guards weren't looking. She replaced weak bandages with fresh ones she smuggled from the supply room. When the others left, she whispered soft words to him. Words of comfort she had never spoken to another patient. The bond between them grew in the shadows, unseen but undeniable. One night, as she checked his wounds, he reached out weakly. His fingers brushed her wrist, trembling but deliberate. Her heart skipped. It was not a demand, not a desperate grab. It was a silent gesture of trust. And for a moment, nurse and patient were no longer divided by species. They were simply two beings clinging to survival together. Outside, fear only grew stronger. Staff muttered that he was dangerous. Guards whispered about orders to remove him soon. Leora felt the walls closing in, but she also felt stronger beside him. She realized the whispers no longer mattered as much. What mattered was the human's life, and the strange connection they now shared. Another night, the human tried to speak more. His words were broken, heavy with effort. But Leora leaned close to catch them. "Your world," he rasped, "hates me." Her chest tightened. "No," she whispered firmly. "Not everyone." He gave her a weak smile, his lips cracked but his eyes glimmering with something fragile. "Hope. You," he breathed, before exhaustion pulled him back into sleep. That single word echoed in Leora's mind. He trusted her, perhaps more than anyone else had in his life. And she realized she trusted him too, more than her charts, more than her training. The bond they shared was small, secret, but stronger than the fear outside the room. By the end of the week, his wounds had closed more. His breathing steadied, his strength slowly returning. Leora knew the others would notice soon. If they saw how fast he healed, their fear would turn into action. They would try to take him away, or worse, end him before the truth spread. That night, as the stars shone through the high windows, Leora whispered to him, "They will come for you," she said, voice trembling. His eyes flickered open, tired but calm. "Then you leave me," he whispered. Her heart broke at his words, but she shook her head violently. "No, I won't," she said. "I will stand with you, no matter what." He looked at her for a long moment, silence heavy between them. Then slowly, painfully, he nodded. Something unspoken passed between them, an agreement, a bond stronger than fear. As dawn crept into the ward, Leora realized something terrifying and beautiful. This was no longer just about saving a patient. This was about protecting a secret, a truth that could shatter the galaxy's beliefs. And somehow, in the middle of it all, she and the human had chosen each other. Days turned into nights, and still the human lived. Every morning the staff expected to find him gone. Yet every morning he breathed, stronger than before. The whispers outside grew louder, the fear heavier. But inside his room something different was happening. Leora watched his body change in ways her charts could not explain. What should have taken months of recovery was unfolding in days. His skin, once pale and torn, grew firmer, scars forming and then fading faster than natural healing allowed. The muscles in his arms tightened, no longer wasting away. Even his breathing changed. It grew deeper, steadier, as if each inhale carried the weight of survival itself. The scanners continued to flash red warnings, still screaming impossibility. But Leora no longer trusted the machines, she trusted her eyes. And her eyes told her the human was winning. One evening, while checking his pulse, she froze. Her hand rested on his wrist and she felt not weakness but strength. The steady rhythm of his heart was no longer faint, it was powerful, like a drum refusing silence. She leaned back, shocked, her voice trembling. "You should not be this strong." His lips curved faintly into a tired smile. "Yet, I am," he whispered. The other nurses noticed too, and their fear sharpened. One of them confronted Leora in the hallway, her eyes wide. "He's not natural, Leora, don't you see? He heals like a beast, not a man." Leora shook her head, clutching her tray tight. "He's alive because he refuses to die." But her words did not calm anyone. Instead, fear spread like fire. That night, while the hospital dimmed into silence, Leora stayed close by his side. She whispered softly, telling him about the galaxy, the stars, anything to keep his mind awake. To her shock, he whispered back, more words than before. Pieces of his story slipped out. He had fought in battles. He had bled for people who abandoned him. And yet, even after betrayal, he still fought to live. His voice was rough, but his will unbroken. And Leora realized she was witnessing more than healing. She was witnessing defiance by the fifth sunrise. His progress could no longer be hidden. Guards passing by peeked into the ward and muttered in disbelief. Doctors argued in the halls, voices sharp with panic. "If this is true, humans are dangerous beyond measure," one snapped. Another whispered, "If he survives, the council will demand answers." Leora listened from the shadows, her heart pounding. She knew if they discovered how strong he was becoming, they would never let him live back in the room. She touched the bandages carefully, peeling them away. Her eyes widened beneath the wrappings. Fresh skin had formed where deep gashes once tore. It was not perfect, not clean like nanobot work, but it was real, raw, and alive. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered, "You're healing yourself." The human met her gaze, his voice low but certain. "Humans always do." That moment changed everything for her. He was not a monster, not a curse. He was proof of something greater. He was proof that survival was not just in charts or machines, but in willpower stronger than pain. She wrote notes in secret, hiding them in her locker. If anyone saw her reports, they would call her a traitor. But she knew history was unfolding in that room, and she was part of it. By evening, he did something that left her breathless. As she entered with water, she found him sitting up on the bed. Not weakly leaning, not struggling, but sitting tall with trembling strength. Her heart skipped, the bowl almost slipping from her hands. "You shouldn't," she began, but stopped when he lifted his hand. "I can," he said, voice firmer than ever. It was the breakthrough she had waited for. The impossible was no longer hidden in quiet healing. It stood in front of her. The human had crossed the line between dying and living. He was no longer just surviving, he was recovering. But with the breakthrough came danger. That very night, the head doctor returned with guards. They stood at the door, eyes narrowing as they saw the human sitting upright. The doctor's voice dripped with fear and anger. "Unnatural. He should not be alive." Leora's hands trembled as she stepped between them, blocking their way. "He is alive," she said firmly, "and that is all that matters." The guards shifted uneasily, their weapons clutched tighter. The human met their stares with tired but unyielding eyes. For the first time, he looked less like a patient and more like a fighter. The doctor turned sharply, his voice sharp as steel. "Tomorrow he will be removed, whether alive or not." As they left, the room fell silent, the weight of doom pressing heavy. Leora looked at the human, her chest tight with fear. "They'll try to take you," she whispered. His eyes softened and he gave a faint nod. "Then we fight," he said simply. Leora knew then that their bond had become something unbreakable. It was no longer just nurse and patient. It was allies against a galaxy too afraid to understand. And as the stars glowed outside the high windows, she realized something else. The breakthrough was not just his healing. It was the moment they both decided they would not give up. No matter the cost, the next morning tension hung heavy in the alien hospital. Whispers trailed down the halls like shadows, sharp and fearful. Everyone knew the human was no ordinary patient. His impossible healing had become the center of speculation. Fear and awe. Leora walked quietly toward his room. Her heart pounding, she could feel the weight of stares, of judgment pressing against her back. When she entered, the human was sitting up, his body stronger than ever. He looked at her and gave a faint nod, his eyes steady and alert. "Are they coming?" he whispered. "Yes," she said. "And we can't let them take you." He shifted slightly, testing his strength. "I am ready," he said softly, though his voice carried a calm determination. At that moment, the doors burst open. Guards stormed in, weapons drawn, their boots clanging against the floor. The head doctor followed, robes flaring, eyes blazing with authority and fear. "You cannot resist," the doctor snapped. "This human will be removed, or you will face consequences." Leora stepped forward, placing herself between the guards and the human. "My orders are clear, he stays here," she said firmly, voice shaking but strong. The guards paused, looking from her to the human. Confusion and fear in their eyes. The human rose slowly, every movement deliberate, muscles taut and controlled for the first time. He looked less like a patient and more like a force to be reckoned with. Leora felt her pulse quicken. He did not speak, but the calm in his eyes was more powerful than any words. One guard raised his weapon, pointing at the human. "Step aside, nurse," he growled, "or we will remove him by force." Leora shook her head, her hands clenched into fists. "I will not step aside," she said. "He is alive, and you will not harm him." The guard hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Something in the human's presence made even the trained warriors falter. The head doctor's voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. "This is insubordination. You dare defy the council's orders?" Leora's eyes met his, unwavering. "He lives because he deserves to live," she said, "and I will protect him." The human took a slow step forward. Testing his strength, the guards flinched, sensing something beyond ordinary human limits. A low hum echoed from the machines monitoring him. Readings flashed red and gold, alarms ringing faintly. Every chart in the room screamed danger, but the human stood steady. He looked at the guards, eyes calm, voice firm. "I will not go with you," he said. The words were simple, but in the quiet room they carried power. One guard lunged forward, trying to grab him. The human sidestepped with surprising agility, his movements fluid and precise. Leora gasped, stepping back to avoid collision. The guards froze, realizing that this was no ordinary human. He did not strike them. He did not attack. He simply stood unyielding, resisting without violence. The head doctor shouted, furious, "Enough! Bind him now!" Two guards moved closer, weapons ready. The human's eyes narrowed, and Leora felt a surge of something, strength. Courage and defiance. He did not speak, but the air around him seemed to pulse. Every guard felt it, an invisible force. An unspoken warning. The room held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Leora stepped forward again, placing herself firmly in front of him. "You will not touch him," she said, voice echoing in the room. Her heart raced, but she refused to move. The human looked at her, gratitude in his eyes. "You believe in me," he whispered. "Yes," she replied. And that is enough. The standoff continued, tension thick and unbroken. Finally, the head doctor glared, realizing that brute force would not work. He waved the guards back, muttering curses under his breath. "They will return," he said, "but for now, leave this room." The guards stepped back reluctantly, their faces pale. The human remained standing, breathing evenly, unshaken. After the doors closed, silence returned. The human sank onto the bed, exhaustion finally showing on his face. Leora knelt beside him, brushing hair from his forehead. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood your ground." He gave a faint smile, eyes closing briefly. "It was not just me," he said. "It was you." For the first time, Leora understood fully. This was more than survival, more than healing. This was a bond forged in the shadows, tested in fear. Together, they had resisted a galaxy too afraid to understand. And in that small room, the impossible became real. A human could survive, and a nurse could defy the world. Outside, the whispers began again. But Leora no longer feared them. She had seen the truth, the strength in the human before her. And she knew that no amount of fear, rules, or authority could break what had been built in the quiet nights. Together, they were ready for whatever came next. The hospital had grown quiet after the confrontation. Whispers still floated down the halls, but no one dared enter the human's room. He lay on the bed, pale but strong, eyes watching Leora with a calm awareness she had never seen before. For days she had cared for him in secret. Broken rules, risked her career, and faced whispers and fear, but now, it was no longer about hiding or rules. It was about truth, and the truth was undeniable. The human turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers. "Why? Did you stay?" he asked, voice faint but firm. Leora hesitated, feeling her chest tighten. "Because I saw you survive when no chart said you could," she whispered. "You fought. More than anyone I have known," she added. His lips curved slightly, a small, tired smile. "I didn't fight alone," he said softly. "You were." Here, outside the ward, the hospital was stirring. Other nurses peeked from doors, their fear giving way to curiosity. Even the guards lingered, glancing nervously at the room. Word had spread that the human soldier, impossible and unbroken, had survived the night, and that a young nurse had defied authority to protect him. It was unheard of. A story that would shock the galaxy if it escaped. Leora adjusted the blankets around him, watching every rise and fall of his chest. She realized she had underestimated the depth of his resilience. Not just in body, but in spirit. Every scar, every wound, had been met with a will to live that no chart, no machine, no alien law could measure. She reached out, brushing his hair from his forehead. "You are stronger than anyone imagined," she whispered. Voice filled with awe, he turned his gaze to the ceiling. Thinking, "The galaxy expects humans to fail," he said quietly. "But we survive." Leora nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Humans were unpredictable, their strength and courage beyond expectation. This one human had rewritten every rule in the hospital. Every chart, every assumption. The head doctor appeared at the doorway, his face pale and tight. He had watched the human rise, heal and resist. "This cannot be," he muttered, eyes wide. Leora stood protectively in front of the bed, unwavering. "He is alive," she said firmly. "And that is all that matters." The doctor's mouth opened, closed, then he nodded stiffly. Perhaps he feared the truth, or perhaps he finally understood it. The human shifted slightly, speaking softly. "They fear me because they do not understand." Leora smiled faintly, brushing a hand along his arm. "Then let them learn," she whispered. His eyes met hers again, gratitude shining in them. "You believed in me," he said, voice stronger, more certain. "I did," she replied, "and that belief kept you alive. For the first time, the ward felt different. No longer just a place of charts and orders. It was a witness to something impossible. The human had survived, yes, but more than that. He had inspired courage in another, and together, they had challenged the fear and rules of an entire hospital. As the sun rose outside the high windows, its light spilled across the sterile floor. The human moved slightly, testing his strength. He was stronger now. Muscles firm, breathing steady, scars fading. Leora watched, a mix of awe and worry filling her chest. He was alive, stronger than anyone predicted, and yet, the galaxy would not forgive ignorance easily. The whispers outside grew, louder this time, but Leora did not move. The human turned to her, voice soft but firm. "Whatever comes, we face it together," she nodded, gripping his hand. "Yes, together," she said. The bond they had formed in secret, through fear, healing, and defiance, was unbreakable. By midday, news had spread through the hospital. Other nurses, guards, and even visiting doctors stared in disbelief. The impossible had happened. A human had survived wounds that should have ended him, and a young nurse had defied the system to keep him alive. No one could deny it, no chart could explain it. The truth was visible, undeniable. Undeniable in his steady chest, his clear eyes, his stubborn life. Leora stood beside him, her hand holding his. She realized that humans were not just numbers, not just statistics in a chart. They were unpredictable, fierce, and astonishing. And this one human had proved it. He was alive because he refused to give up, and because someone, her, had chosen to believe in him. As the day went on, the whispers faded, replaced by cautious admiration. The human looked at Leora again, faint smile on his lips. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "You did not give up." She smiled softly, leaning closer. "Neither did you," she whispered. And in that quiet room, amid whispers, fear, and charts that could not explain him, the human truth became clear. Survival was not in science alone. It was in courage and defiance, and in the bond between two souls who refused to give in.